A successful entrepreneur walks into a luxury car dealership, only to be dismissed and humiliated by the manager. What happens next uncovers a web of hidden bias and sparks a confrontation that no one saw coming. It was a warm Saturday morning in Charleston, South Carolina, and the air was buzzing with weekend energy. Malik Daniels, a 38-year-old entrepreneur, pulled into the lot of Coastal Luxury Motors. His heart raced not with nervousness but excitement. This wasn't just a car. It was the culmination of years of hard work and discipline. Malik had his eye on a sleek jet black sports car. The kind of vehicle that made you feel unstoppable. Dressed in a crisp navy blazer and tailored slacks, Malik stepped out of his Tesla, which had served him well over the years. He smoothed his tie and walked through the glass doors. The scent of new leather hit him immediately. And a few heads turned. Malik had a magnetic presence. Confident but approachable. He was the kind of man who drew people in with his charisma and professionalism. As he approached the front desk, a slender woman with sharp features and an icy smile looked up. Her name tag read Sandra. Sandra, the manageress of the dealership, greeted him with the kind of politeness that felt practiced rather than genuine. Her eyes flicked over him, pausing briefly as if scanning for something. "Good morning," Malik began, offering a warm smile. "I'm interested in the Jaguar F-Type outside. Could I speak to someone about running numbers?" Sandra tilted her head, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. "That model starts at $80,000. Are you sure you're ready to commit to something in that price range?" Her tone was honeyed but carried an unmistakable edge. For a moment Malik didn't respond. He wasn't sure if he had heard her correctly. He decided to brush it off and remain professional. "I am aware of the pricing," he replied, keeping his tone even. "I'd like to start the process, if that's all right." Sandra hesitated, her smile faltering for a split second. "Well, let's just see if the car is still available," she said, picking up the phone but not dialing. Her eyes darted toward the showroom, where the Jaguar gleamed under the overhead lights. Malik felt a subtle shift in the air. He was used to proving himself in spaces where he wasn't always welcomed. But he hadn't expected it here. Not today. Still, he waited patiently, determined not to let anything ruin this moment. But as Sandra continued to stall, tapping her pen against the desk, it became clear that this was going to be more complicated than it needed to be. But before Malik could respond, Sandra's next comment would leave him wondering if he was about to face something far bigger than a simple car purchase. Malik's patience, while impressive, wasn't infinite. He cleared his throat and glanced at Sandra. "Is there an issue if the car isn't available? Perhaps I can take a look at similar models." Sandra set the pen down with a deliberate slowness, her lips pressing into a thin line. "The issue is," she began, pausing, as though searching for the right words, "we don't want to waste anyone's time. Yours or ours. This is a high-end dealership, and we have certain protocols." Her words hit Malik like a slap, each syllable loaded with an implication she didn't need to spell out. He steadied himself, keeping his voice calm. "Protocols? I'm not sure I understand. I just want to run a credit check and see financing options, like any other customer." Sandra leaned forward slightly, her expression tightening. "I don't think this is the right dealership for you. Perhaps a more mid-range lot would better suit your needs." A murmur rippled through the showroom. Customers and employees were beginning to take notice of the exchange. Malik glanced around, his composure intact. But his mind racing. Was this really happening in 2024? In a city that prided itself on being a hub of progress? Was he being told no, assumed he didn't belong here? Before he could respond, a young man in a gray polo stepped forward. His name tag read Ethan. His voice was hesitant, but his intention was clear. Sandra. I can help him. We don't usually turn customers away. Do we? Sandra shot him a glare that could have frozen water. Ethan, this isn't your call to make, she snapped. I'm following protocol. Ethan hesitated but didn't retreat. I just think, he began. But Sandra cut him off. This is my dealership. I make the decisions here. Malik raised a hand, gesturing for Ethan to stand down. I appreciate your help, he said, addressing Ethan directly. His tone firm but polite. Then he turned back to Sandra. Look, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to buy a car. If you're refusing to assist me, I'll have to escalate this. Sandra's smirk returned, colder than before. Escalate to who? You think this is some sort of discrimination case? She chuckled, the sound grating and condescending. Good luck proving that. Malik's jaw tightened. But he refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing him lose control. He reached for his phone, intending to document the situation. But before he could press record, a voice from across the room interrupted. Excuse me, the voice said, firm and commanding. A man in a tailored suit with silver-streaked hair stepped forward. He carried an air of authority, the kind that made people listen. Malik turned, his expression shifting from frustration to curiosity. The man walked up to Sandra, his eyes narrowing slightly. I couldn't help but overhear. He said, I'm Tony Busby, an attorney. And I'd like to know why this gentleman is being denied service. Sandra faltered, her confidence visibly shaken. This is a private matter, she said quickly. It doesn't concern you. Tony ignored her, addressing Malik instead. Would you mind explaining what's been happening here? His tone was calm, measured. Just the sort of demeanor Malik needed at that moment. Malik hesitated for a beat, then spoke clearly. I came in to purchase a car. I've been repeatedly dismissed and told I don't belong here. Tony nodded, then turned back to Sandra. Interesting, he said, his voice cool but pointed. Do you always determine who belongs here based on arbitrary assumptions? Sandra opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. But as the tension in the room grew thicker, it became clear that this wasn't just about Malik's car. It was about something much bigger. The showroom had gone silent. Customers stood frozen, some pretending to browse while others openly stared. Even the sales staff exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of whether to intervene or stay out of it. Sandra's defiance wavered as Tony Busby's calm, yet piercing gaze bore into her. I don't appreciate being accused of anything improper. Sandra finally stammered, her voice shaky. This gentleman simply doesn't meet the requirements we have for financing. That's all. Tony raised an eyebrow. Financing requirements? That's an interesting claim, considering you haven't even run his credit check. He gestured to the desk, where Sandra had yet to touch the keyboard. So tell me, what exactly are these requirements based on? Sandra's face flushed, but she stayed silent. Malik, still standing tall, glanced around the room. He could feel the tide shifting, not just in his favor but towards something larger. People were paying attention now. Their eyes no longer indifferent. This wasn't just a moment. It was becoming a statement. Tony took a step closer to Sandra, lowering his voice, but ensuring it carried across the room. Let me make this clear: refusing to serve a customer based on assumptions or biases is not only unethical but potentially illegal. If this gentleman chooses to pursue this legally, I can assure you, it won't end well for your dealership or your career. Sandra's lips quivered as she tried to regain control. I don't need a lecture, she snapped. But the strength in her voice was gone. This is a misunderstanding. Tony tilted his head slightly. Is it then? Let's clear it up right now. Run the credit check, process his request. And let's see if it's really about finances. Or something else entirely. The air felt electric. Ethan. The young employee stepped forward again. His voice hesitant but determined. I can take over from here, he said. I'll help. Mr. Daniels. Sandra glared at him, but before she could object, a ripple of murmurs spread through the room. One of the customers, an older woman holding a leather handbag, stepped forward. I've been coming here for years, she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. I've never seen anyone treated like this. Another man chimed in, his tone incredulous. Exactly what's going on here? This is blatant. Sandra's authority was crumbling. And she knew it still. She clung to what little power she had left. Fine, she hissed, motioning for Ethan to proceed. But don't say I didn't warn you. If this turns out to be a waste of time. Malik said nothing. He handed his documents to Ethan, who quickly got to work within minutes. The results were clear. Malik's credit was impeccable. His finances solid. Ethan printed the report and handed it to Malik with a sheepish smile. Everything checks out. Let's get you that car. Tony folded his arms, looking at Sandra with a pointed expression. Well, it seems your protocols were mistaken. Or should I say non-existent? Sandra looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. But before anyone could move forward, Malik raised a hand. Hold on, he said, his voice calm but firm. This isn't just about me. How many others have walked in here and been treated like this? How many left without someone like Mr. Busby to step in? The room grew even quieter. Malik turned to address the customers who had been watching. This isn't just about buying a car. It's about dignity, respect. If we let moments like this slide, nothing changes. But just as his words began to sink in, an unexpected voice from the back of the room spoke up. And what they revealed would take the situation to an entirely new level. A deep voice broke through the heavy silence. He's not the first. Heads turned toward the back of the room, where a moderately aged man in a denim coat stood, his arms crossed firmly. His face was endured yet unflinching. What's more, his eyes ignited with conviction. Sandra hardened. Excuse me, she snapped, her voice sharp however temperamental. You heard me, the man said, venturing forward. I was here 2 months prior with my significant other. We needed to exchange her SUV for something more up to date. She's Latina and I'm white. The agent continued to converse with me like she wasn't even there, as she didn't exist when we got down on them. They guaranteed the vehicle we needed wasn't available. However, I saw it stopped just outside. A rush of mumbles spread through the group. Another client, a youthful individual of color holding a baby, wavered prior to shouting out. I came here last year, she said, her voice shaking somewhat. I was taking a gander at a car. I thought perhaps it was simply me. In any case, the sales rep kept guiding me toward the least expensive choices. I had the cash yet. They didn't actually try showing me the funding plans. Sandra's face turned pale as additional voices told in every story laid out an image that was difficult to overlook. A culture of unpretentious and not all that inconspicuous segregation that had unobtrusively flourished in the showroom. It wasn't only one individual or one episode. It was an example. Malik checked out, his heart not set in stone. This is precisely exact thing I'm discussing, he said, tending to the room. These minutes include they work on individuals. In the event that we don't get down on them, they become typical. Tony gestured, his appearance serious. This isn't just about awful way of behaving. It's foundational. What's more, foundational issues require fundamental arrangements. Sandra attempted to contribute, her voice ascending in franticness. This is going crazy. We're a trustworthy business. We treat everybody reasonably. Be that as it may, her words were muffled by another voice. This time from inside her own positions. Ethan, the youthful representative, ventured forward, his face flushed however unflinching. No, we don't, he said, his voice breaking marginally. I've seen it. We have various norms for various individuals. Furthermore, it's not right. The room ejected. Clients yelled questions. Representatives murmured among themselves. Furthermore, Sandra apparently attempted to keep up with control. Malik moved forward, lifting his hand to calm the group. I didn't come here to cause bedlam, he said, his tone consistent however strong. In any case, I additionally didn't come here to be excused. This isn't just around one showroom. It's about how we treat each other all over the place. Be that as it may, as the residue settled and reality became known, the inquiry waited. How might be made things right? The heaviness of Malik's words lingered palpably, hushing the uproar in the display area. Sandra's self-restraint was disentangling. Her frosty attitude supplanted with noticeable dissatisfaction. Enough of this, she woofed, hammering a hand on the counter. This is all being dramatically overemphasized. We run an expert activity here. Tony Busby ventured forward, his voice well-honed. Proficient. Denying assistance without cause isn't proficient. It's oppressive. Furthermore, the various declarations we've recently heard recommend a lot further issue. Sandra's eyes shot to the workplace entryway, at the rear of the display area, where the showroom's senior supervisor, a bold man named Douglas Harper, had arisen. He looked fatigued, changing his tie as he strolled toward the gathering. What's happening here, he inquired, his voice clearly yet stressed, attempting to project authority. Tony burned through no time. What's happening is that your showroom appears to dislike fair treatment, he said, motioning around a developing horde of displeased clients. This isn't just around one occurrence. This is about an example of predisposition and rejection that your staff has sustained. Douglas' face flushed, yet he constrained a stressed grin. I'm certain this is each of a misconception. We should examine this secretly and resolve it genuinely. Malik ventured forward, his voice quiet however undaunted. No, this should be tended to here before everybody. An excessive number of individuals have encountered this sort of treatment. What's more, hiding it away from plain view won't transform anything. The group mumbled in arrangement. Douglas moved awkwardly, his grin vacillating. Mr. Daniels, I guarantee you we view these allegations in a serious way. Assuming that there's been any unfortunate behavior, we'll research and deal with it suitably. Malik met his look relentless. Great, since I won't allow this to go unnoticed. You don't get to excuse individuals, in view of your presumptions or biases. That stops here. The unease was overwhelming. However, at that point Ethan made some noise once more. On the off chance that I may, he said. Tending to Douglas, I've turned out here for a considerable length of time. I've perceived how we treat a few clients in an unexpected way. Guiding them toward less expensive vehicles. Declining to run credit checks. Rationalizing is not right. What's more, on the off chance that we don't address it, obliterating our reputation is going. Douglas frowned at Ethan, his dissatisfaction bubbling over. You're off the mark, child. Be that as it may, Ethan didn't withdraw. No sir. I'm not, I'm simply coming clean. The room fell quiet, everyone's eyes on Douglas. He appeared to collapse. The heaviness of the circumstance at last soaking in. After a long respite he went to Sandra. We'll have to examine your direct further, he said firmly. Then he checked the group out. To everybody here, I truly apologize for any abuse you've encountered. This isn't the standard we need to maintain. Malik took a full breath. His outrage cooling, however, his assurance flawless. Statements of regret are a beginning, he said. Be that as it may, activities talk stronger to make this right. You want to change your works on beginning at this point. Douglas gestured hesitantly. You're correct, we'll survey our strategies. Furthermore, retrain our staff to guarantee reasonableness. The group still had doubts. Yet, there was a feeling that something had moved. Sandra stood frozen, her position stripped away. Ethan looked eased. However, uncertain of what might occur straight away. Be that as it may, even as the circumstance appeared to settle, the inquiry remained: would genuine change follow? Or on the other hand, was this simply harm control? The environment in the display area stayed charged. A mix of help and waiting uncertainty. Malik went to the group. His voice quiet yet firm. Words are a beginning, yet we want to consider them responsible. This isn't just around one showroom. It's tied in with changing how we approach circumstances like this all over. A wave of understanding traveled through the gathering. The more seasoned man who had spoken before provided Malik with a gesture of regard. You have my help. Individuals like Sandra have pulled off this for a really long time. Sandra, actually remaining behind the work area, look staggered. Her strategic, influential place, once so secure, had disintegrated totally. Douglas now, completely mindful of the harm to his showroom's standing, tended to the group once more. We'll start a full survey right away. Any staff part found to have participated in biased rehearses will confront results. Tony Busby ventured forward, his directing presence drawing everybody's consideration. I'll be following up to guarantee this isn't simply talk, he said, and assuming that anybody here feels they've been violated, my office will be taking articulations. Sandra scowled at him, didn't yet say anything. Malik, standing tall, stretched out a hand to Ethan. Much obliged, he said earnestly. It takes mental fortitude to shout out, particularly when it's difficult. Ethan shook his hand, his demeanor a blend of appreciation and assurance. It's the best thing to do. As the group scattered, numerous clients moved toward Malik to say thanks to him for standing up. The youthful person of color with the baby grinned heartily. What you did today matters. She said, for us all. Outside, as Malik strolled toward his vehicle, Tony made up for lost time to him. You dealt with that with effortlessness. Tony said. I've seen circumstances like this winding crazy. Be that as it may, you remained composed. Malik gestured, his voice consistent. It's not just about me, it's tied in with appearing. That we don't need to acknowledge this sort of treatment. We can request better. Tony grinned, broadening his card. In the event that you at any point need anything, tell me you have a partner. Malik took the card. Appreciation glimmering across his face. Much obliged, Tony. I feel a debt of gratitude. As he arrived at his Tesla, Malik looked back at the showroom. It presently not felt like a position of dismissal. In any case, a beginning stage for something greater. He knew the battle for uniformity didn't end here. Yet, today was a positive development. Minutes like these advise us that progress doesn't come from quietness. It comes from standing up. Standing up and declining to acknowledge bad form. Malik's story isn't extraordinary. In any case, his assurance to stand up to segregation with nobility and resolve is a model for us all. Assuming this story moved you, pause for a minute to ponder how we can challenge inclinations in our own lives. Shout out when you see foul play. Support the individuals who are battling for reasonableness. Also, recall that change starts with every one of us. Assuming you found this story effective, kindly buy into our feed. For additional accounts that flash discussion, motivate change. What's more, focus a light on the minutes that make the biggest difference. Your voice can assist with enhancing these messages. What's more, carry us more like a world where everybody is treated with deference.